Thanks for joining. My name is Alawa. I'm a solution architect in the Dynamics 365 FastTrack team for finance and operation. Along with me, I have Sachin, JJ or Jila, and Harsh to cover the Q&A side of it. And we also have Kenny and Ali who will be answering your questions as part of the chat. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, thanks. So let me start with introduction to FastTrack for Dynamics 365. Right, FastTrack for Dynamics 365 is a customer success program geared towards accelerating time to value and hitting go-live target with confidence. The program is designed and powered by Microsoft engineering team. For some of you who have already got FastTrack engagements, this should be very familiar, right? Our program is centered around 3 pillars, from starting implementation all through increasing solution footprint and workload. Our first focus area is success by design. So you can implement the solutions with the highest possible quality. We do this by providing early solution architecture validation, so we can offer the right guidance and recommendations, eventually to protect you from hitting common implementation pitfalls. And if we've done that right, that should lead to our second point, going live with confidence. During the implementation journey, we strive to remove surprises that might lead to go-live blockers. We strive to stay on top of high-risky areas, pushing for the right mitigation so you can focus on your users and your solution adoption and rollout. Of course, depending on the implementation size, you will get the right Microsoft FastTrack involvement, but at minimum, every finance and operation project has a FastTrack oversight at go-live preparation. Of course, all the learnings we go through during implementation journey, as we build new experiences, as you adopt new features, are key to stay connected with our product teams. By being in the program of FastTrack, you benefit from connections with community and product experts as we cover and deliver various events just like this one or TechTalks and other forums, as well as have the opportunity to influence our product roadmap, by bringing your pure voice, the customer voice, into these discussions. Now, finally, this strong relationship, and connection with engineering allows you to grow your business, maximize your value out of the solution by adopting new features and new capabilities as early as possible before they even publicly release to the market. With that, our program is designed as an investment in our products and customer success. So although there is no additional cost to be part of FastTrack, we want to ensure maximum value and the right coverage, right? So for that, there is eligibility criteria for customers and a nomination process to be enrolled into the program. So if you are starting an implementation journey, make sure to talk to your account team or to your partner to be nominated to FastTrack. Now, let me take the few minutes to take you through the migration process overview. Of course, we're not going to go into deep into the specific areas as we will spend the time, as we want to spend most of the time today answering your questions, but I want to maybe call out 2 key things. The first thing is the migration process is, has 3 areas. You have to do analysis, and once you understand your timelines and efforts, you actually do the upgrade work and eventually finally do the validation. So given the nature of the upgrade process or the migration process, we want to make sure that we give you the right kind of Microsoft oversight, right? So we have a program called Dynamics Migration Program where you can ask for a migration assessment so that you can get insights and understand or better understand and be informed about your migration plan. So the first message is, if you are thinking about upgrading from a legacy version, talk to your account team, talk to your partner to be enrolled into the migration program and get a migration assessment. The second thing is, I just want to quickly highlight some of the key topics and some of the key areas in each of these phases so that you are better aligned and you have better understanding for some of the key steps. So the first phase is purely analysis phase, right? You want to have some kind of a high-level estimation for the complexity, for the efforts that are required for migrating your solution. With that, you might identify some of the key customizations that has been done in the past that might not necessarily be required in the finance and operation side as we have new capabilities and new features. So the second step is to make sure that you do the right kind of fit gap analysis to see which of those customizations can be refactored or even redundant and redesigned to deliver standard capabilities. And the key output of that analysis phase typically is a project plan that gives you some kind of a rough estimate for the efforts and the timelines you need. As soon as you have the right kind of, uh, let's say, uh, understanding of your estimates and the right budget and resourcing, the next step would be to actually go and start with your upgrade. Under execute, there are three key things. The first thing is you need to do some preparation work on your source database under Dynamics AX 2012. Some of that is basically just to do some kind of necessary cleanups so that you can go through the upgrade process as fast as possible. And some of it is actually just to install some prerequisites in your source system to prepare the data to be compatible with the cloud version. The next thing is, as part of the execution is actually doing the code upgrade, so converting all your required customizations into Dynamics 365 compatible version. So converting what we used to call overlayers to extensions, as well as redesigning some of the key areas that had to be redesigned, things like integrations and reporting, and etc. The last step is actually going through data upgrade, right? And that really depends whether you are doing a big bang in-place upgrade coming from AX 2012 or whether you are opting for a migration approach where you're actually maybe going through phase migration or coming from earlier versions than AX 2012. But in general, the idea is you have to iterate, you have to plan for iterations on doing your data upgrade, to get enough confidence about the timing and the quality of your data. Once you reach a stable code, once you reach a stable code and data, the last step is to start your validation steps, right? So doing some kind of upgrade validation to make sure that the data has actually, is showing up in the right places and has the right quality. Then you want to make sure that you do all kind of functional tests. So from pure, functional testing to system integration testing and UAT to make sure that not only, the project team is happy about the project functionality and the solution functionality, but also you want to make sure that users are actually signing that off. And the last piece is the cutover testing, right? It's very crucial to make sure that you understand the timing required for cutover and make sure that you have confidence, because typically if you are going through a big bang lift and shift, it's very common that you have an extended weekend for doing the cutover. So you want to make sure that you do that with utmost confidence. Now, of course, this is very high level. There are much more details. You can see, as you can see on the slide, I've already put a link that takes you through that entire upgrade overview. And if, I think this is a great segue to move to the next point, so we can open it up for questions and start answering any questions that you might have. With that, I'll hand it over to Tom. Tom, over back to you.
Thanks, Mo. So yeah, as Mo said, right, like please start putting your questions in the chat and we'll answer them as we can and read them here. We did get some pre-submitted questions, so we'll start with those first. And the first one, I think, is probably directed towards maybe JJ and Ali. It's a reporting question, and the question is, what options exist from a reporting perspective to view our tables comparable to the application object tool in AX 2012?
Sure. Thanks, Thomas. Yes, I'll take the part of the reporting. So in AX, compared to AX 2012, in AX 2012, you have reporting options such as SLS reports, and inquiry pages and things like that. in this Dynamics 365 finance and operations, that reporting options are expanded. There are more options. User interface is much more intuitive for reporting. Workspaces, functionalities give a good reporting capabilities for focused reporting based on what users' roles are, as well as list spaces and things like that. SSRS reports are still there. You can develop SSRS report. Along with that, there are many other tools such as Power BI embedded, as well as electronic reporting, which is a great ad hoc reporting tool and things like that for compliance and tax reporting, those kind of scenarios. Financial reporting is also, in AX2012, it's used to be called as a management reporter, is also available in Dynamics 365. It's called as a financial reporting. It's within the application. Along with that, there are many data export technique, where you can export data outside of the finance and operations using bring your own database technologies or export to data lake feature. So with that, you can get your data outside and build report as well as data warehouse solutions and things like that. Ali, do you want to add anything? I think there was the second part of the questions has touched to application object tree. So this is basically the called AOT, and that application object tree still exists in Dynamics 365. This is more of a developer experience to understand the tables and browse tables. So all those capabilities still exist in the Dynamics 365.
If Ali doesn't have anything to add, we'll go to the next one. And it's a data question, so JJ and Harsh, maybe this is a good one for both of you, right? The question asks, or the individual asks, what are some of the critical things to consider when working with Dynamics 365 F&O in the cloud and AX 2012 on-premise simultaneously? Looks like they have multiple organizations that are moving to the cloud, but they've not all moved yet, and they need the data exchange they need a seamless data exchange between the two systems to ensure smooth processes.
I think I can take this question. So we see this very common. This is not a like the organizations big in size where AX2012 is used at multiple sites or multiple countries, and to mitigate the risk, it's very common for customers to think that, hey, we'll go to D365 in phases, a phased go live approach. And this is more of a migration approach that, hey, we'll go live with a country A first and then country B second. At the same time, I think it's important, like ERP system needs the consolidated data and all those kind of things, right? So it's very common to customers to build integrations in the interim to bridge those kind of gaps. And one of the common things we see that, you have to make one system, either Dynamics 365 or your existing AX2012 systems as a system of record. ERP is a system of record, and you need your financials or any of those kind of things in one system from a consolidation perspective in many cases, right? So what we have seen is usually, customers build integrations to just to take example, like a country A is live in the D365 and rest of the countries are in AX2012. Then typically what we see is customer build integrations, GL level integrations, summarize GL entries coming back to the AX2012. So your AX2012 is still as a whole ERP system for the financial system of record. And then as you transition more and more countries, your system of records, change to D365. So that's the common patterns we see. Harsh, you want to add anything, or Sachin?
Yeah, so I think the integration problem or integration scenario is always there, whether you have sort of, let's say, different ERPs, and we have even customers that have over a dozen different ERPs because they basically sort of grew through acquisitions and stuff like that. So the integration's always going to be part of it. We have like the data import export framework tool built into the 365. There are APIs you can call to basically automate that process, and you can use like Power Automate or Logic App. Like I have one customer that has SAP in the back end, and sort of the 365 handles all the incoming sales orders and purchase orders. And they have basically done integration purely using Logic Apps there. So everything stays in the cloud. Even the integration tool is in the cloud with Logic Apps, and it calls the data management API and basically syncs the data. And you can basically do the same approach even when you have some systems that are still X2012 versus some companies that might be live in D365. Same approach.
Here's another data question. Are there best practices for how or which technology to use when extracting large amounts of data into a on-prem SQL database?
Jila, you want to take that? I think there are two answers to this.
Yep. Or Harsh, you want to take the first shot and then? Sure. So basically, if we understand this question correctly, what are the right tools and technology to export the data from Dynamics 365 into on-prem SQL or on-prem technologies, right? So the right answer or the right tool is we have Azure Data Lake, export to Azure Data Lake technology. It's a kind of fully managed and scalable and high available service from Microsoft. What you can do, basically, it allows you to export finance and operations data from on-prem into your data lake. And then you can actually use this data from data lake to create your warehousing reports, for any other purposes, right? So it's kind of an add-in that you can actually install that allows you to connect your finance and operations data or environment into a designated or your data lake, right? So, I mean, there are multiple parts of it. When you select your data into F&O apps, the system makes initial copy of the data into data lake. So that is one-time copy of data into data lake. And once the initial copy is made, this service keeps the data into lake fresh by continuously inserting, updating, or deleting data that are changed, right? So it's called near real-time or trickle feed, right? So that is the right tool and technology that we recommend, using with finance and operations app when you want to export large amount of data from F&O into for your on-prem or warehousing need. Jerry, do you want to add some of other scenarios?
Sure. Yeah. And I think with export to data lake, as you mentioned, Harsh, is a kind of a features which exports data to the lake. And if you are basically looking for the reporting and BI or data warehouse solutions, our recommendation would be to use the cloud solutions, cloud native solutions, which are available in the Azure ecosystems, Azure Synapse Analytics, and Synapse Pipeline or ADF to do data transformations, or even Spark. But we do realize that like customers who are coming from the X2012 on-prem background, like there are a lot of systems where the data is still existing in the on-prem systems, and it's easier to, at least for the short term, easier to get the data back into the on-prem SQL server so that you can continue your reporting while your BI and analytics team is planning to move to the cloud. So with the export to data lake, you have both the choices. You can, bring the data once it is in the lake, bring it on-prem down, or you can build the cloud data warehouse solutions or modern data warehouse solutions in the cloud itself. And we do have a lot of templates shared on the GitHub page. We'll share the link here. There are some known techniques, patterns, architecture patterns, which we kind of seen customers doing with export to data lake features, either bringing the data on-prem or building the cloud data warehouse solutions in the cloud.
Here's a I know that Ali sort of answered it in the chat, but I thought maybe it would be good to address it with the group. It looks like it was sort of a data integration question. They're currently looking to migrate their AX2012 R3 system to D365, but they're going to be doing so without transactional data. Is the group aware of anything, any known issues or problems with doing this approach? And Ali, you might want to just
Ali, if you want to unmute yourself and answer this question, I think that would be good.
Yes, thank you. So as I was addressing, so essentially this is what we call a migration approach, which is definitely a possible approach. It's actually something you use for both X2009 or any other legacy system, and it is used, right? It's a choice you have that you can avoid doing a full data upgrade and just move setups and eventually master data. The only thing, don't underestimate the complexity, because even if you have setup that is coming from X2012, some of those modules and processes have been changing from X2012, so you will need to take care of extra setup that you need for the processes that you already have, or you have new set of setup that you need to do for the cloud version, which are completely new, right? So there's no one-to-one mapping. You still need to create a consistent and reliable golden environment, which you put your setup, you test them in your test environment with all the standard process that you would do. So it is a reasonable approach. It has been done, absolutely, but it's not just a one-on-one mapping. You still need to do your golden configuration process.
And I would like to just add to that. I think from AX2012 R3, definitely, you know, that like the the data upgrade path is supported. However, we see a lot of customers doing data migration approach. The reason for that is very simple. You know, when you do data upgrade approach, it's a more of a lift and shift. You have to probably bring most of your customizations, which you did in AX2012, as is or similar to that. Otherwise, the data upgrade becomes complex. With the data migration approach, you bring, typically customers do, it provide a flexibility, go live in phases. You bring whatever is most important or critical customizations. You can remove some of the customizations which you don't need or replaced with the standard, and then adopt the data migration approach. So it's typically similar to what you any customers would do when they're going live first time in DCD5. But being in the AX2012, your schema is very much similar to DCD5. So you have a less, there is still effort to map some of those data elements, but it's a less effort because aware of the schema and the data elements, how it map out. And there are also some preview tools which can help migrating the data from AX2012 as a data migration components to DCD5. So if you have any scenarios where you're trying to do data migrations and you're interested in tools, reach out to us. Harsh, I don't know if we have reach out to us, me and Harsh, and we can connect with you guys, to share and onboard you in that field.
I do want to add one thing to this, to your consideration, basically. Whether to do data migration or a full database upgrade, we have to actually sort of first look at what is in the AX2012 database, right? Is it a good implementation? Is the data there clean? Kind of an example that comes to my mind is in X2012, you may have, configured to use a lot of like dynamic financial dimensions, and that might have sort of potentially created many millions of rows in the dimension combination table. So if we are doing the full database upgrade, kind of changing that setup now with the full database upgrade is going to be difficult, and we will have to carry over the problems that we had in AX 2012. Data migration kind of gives us an opportunity to look at and sort of say, what can we reconfigure and adjust and sort of start with a more of a cleaner slate if the AX 2012 implementation wasn't as clean. So that is something to consider, and obviously the volume of data. So how much data are we going to bring over, and would it have any impact on performance needs to be the other consideration when sort of trying to say, should we just do a full database upgrade or switch to a data migration of open transactions and stuff like that.
Here's one in terms of it kind of follows up on the data lake conversation, right, that we were just having. Rob is looking to migrate from 2012 to D365, and he's planning to use Boyd to do so rather than data lakes, and he's really questioning: are we recommending data lakes over the BYOD, and are there pros and cons to using the BYOD approach versus a data lake?
Yeah, I can take that. So definitely our recommendation is to use exported data lake. The reason is very simple: is data lake exported data lake is a newer technology, as in it's basically less configurations and easy to use, and it doesn't impact your operational performance, and you don't have to monitor the batch jobs and things like that. That's the strong reason why the BYOD is, the exported data lake is recommended over the BYOD. In addition to that, I would say that like with the exported data lake, data is in the lake. So that basically enables you to build modern data warehouse techniques very easily, and that's what a lot of customers are using it, and using that techniques. So yeah, so and cost wise, I saw questions on the cost as well.
Yep.
The BYOD requires you to have a Azure SQL database, which is probably a fixed cost. And if you have to pay, data lake storage is much cheaper compared to Azure SQL database. And then, you use the cloud compute techniques to compute that data, transform, and do the reporting. So cost-wise, also the exported data lake would be cheaper.
The one thing I want to add is that the normal challenge with the BYOD approach historically has been, let's say, you added a field to, let's say, the sales table, and unless you actually go and modify the data entity for sales order, you won't get that field into BYOD. So just to get the data out of the FNO or OLTP database into BYOD, you need to sort of mod the data entity definition for that, which is unfortunately kind of a developer experience. So a lot of times what I've seen is customer want, some data in the BYOD just for some reporting purposes, but they are stuck because they are waiting on a developer to actually go and change the data entity to just land the data in BYOD. With the export to data lake, since we are basically exporting raw tables, you will automatically get that. You won't have to go and do additional development or modify the data entity for that. You may have to modify maybe a view on the data lake side, which is a much smaller change, just a more SQL type of change rather than X++ type of change. And that's basically where I have seen with my customers is that the time to value, let's say you're trying to develop a Power BI report, you just need the data, is much, much faster once you kind of move to the data lake approach and sort of do the initial setup and stuff like that. Then creating additional reports or getting additional data sets is much straightforward, and the time to value sort of decreases for that.
Sachin, here's another reporting question. Is MR reporting part of D365 migrations? Let's see. Also, 2012 MR has so many issues with syncing the data. I guess the real question is, are we working on fixing these syncing issues and the MR reporting in general?
Harsh or Jila, you want to take that, or I can try to answer it.
Yeah, you can start and I can.
Yeah, I think like my understanding is that the MR database actually automatically gets deployed as part of your D365 setup that Microsoft does for you. So you actually don't have to do a whole lot there, and the data sync and everything is sort of handled by us mostly. And if there is a problem, you can always open a ticket, and then we have access to the environment, so we can look at it and fix whatever the problem is. So yes, whatever kind of you had in X2012 from an MR standpoint is still supported as financial reporting in D365. And actually we do all the infrastructure setup and everything for it and make sure those jobs are running. And then you always can get the support for it if you're running into some sort of a challenge there.
Just
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, there used to be challenges with MR in AX 2012 where, customers used to refresh the data and all this, right? Data marts. So we had listened to that feedback, and now financial reporting is much more stable and scalable, right? So we take care, as Sachin mentioned, right? We take care of the service to move or sync the data, and it's much more scalable, and it's more reliable. It used to be with AX 2012. So definitely you will see, a lot of gains and improvement in this service in finance and operations when you move to cloud.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that we are also trying to, now that the data lake integration is there and we can land the data in the data lake, I think the finance team is working on some features to kind of like the financial insights and data models by leveraging the data lake and the power of the computing there. So we are on that journey as well.
Yep. Just to add one last element to that is also like if you have report definitions which you build in AX 2012, I believe there is also a path to migrate, export those report definitions and import that back into the EC5 environment as well. So that is also a path exists.
So we have our first Power Platform question from Gabrielle, and she's asking, how can you enable Power Platform tools to speed up rapid application development? They looks like they have a Dynamics implementation done where users are in one tenant and the Dynamics instance are on a second tenant.
Okay, that seems like a different type of challenge. Like for us, the customer and their Azure Active Directory should be one tenant, and Dynamics and Power Platform should be part of the same tenant. So if we kind of move tenants, then we have basically, added a lot of complexity by having two tenants, because now, everything from authentication and data and everything will become difficult. So the one thing I will try to suggest in this case, if possible, unless there is a very specific need to maintain separate tenants, to get the Power Platform side and D365 within the same tenant.
Yeah, and I think Harsh, if you want to speak about some of the the tools and techniques which we have available in the Power Platform and F&O integrations like virtual. So chime in and I think add some of the details.
Sure. Yes, with finance and operations and Power Platform, we are trying to bring them together, right? The whole motive is to converge these two platforms, right? Therefore, you will see a lot of investment in terms of dual, right, which allows us to
move data from finance and operations to Power Platform or in Dataverse. That is, and then we are tightly integrating these processes. For example, prospect to cash. You will see you can actually start your prospect cycle from Dataverse or CE application in part as part of Power Platform, and then move that prospect and account as a customer into finance and operations, right? So Write is one technology that allows finance and operations data to move into Dataverse and vice versa, from Dataverse to FNO. And then we are bringing tightly coupled business processes, for example, prospect to cash and others, to seamlessly have one dynamics kind of experience, right? So uh, another technology is virtual entities, so that allows finance and operations data to be accessible by Power Platform without even duplicating data, right? So that is another investment that we have done to have that kind of seamless experience for Power Platform users. You will see more and more investment and convergence, story to shape up. Other things are, we have invested in data events and business events. You can actually use Dataverse connector to access business events and data events from Power Platform as well, right? So the whole idea is to bring these two platforms together as one dynamic 365, right? So you can get advantage of finance and operations as well as Power Platform as such.
Yeah, and then we're taking several steps in moving into that one dynamics, one platform direction. What you will see in the coming months is that LCS and Power App Administration Portal will basically be the one merged into one. So you have one admin experience for FNO as well as Power Platform. Dual write virtual entities, like Harsh mentioned, basically helps you kind of access the data from within each applications, and we are kind of trying to address some of the pain points in that area through customer feedback and our own internal learnings. A few examples I want to kind of throw out, like I have customers like today that have built like Power Portals by accessing data from D365 and serving a broader community. Like City of Columbus is a good example. They have a vendor portal where their vendors can access it. Even citizens of the city can go and look at what the city is purchasing and stuff like that. So maintaining transparency with the public. But a lot of that data actually comes from FNO and is integrated through these techniques like virtual entities and Toolwrite. I have another customer that have a self-service portal for a customer that can go and sort of, set, delivery dates or manipulate delivery dates for their sales order lines and look at, how much inventory is available and stuff like that. So we are seeing a lot of those scenarios where FNO plus Power Platform is adding a lot of value and automation to the business processes, and that's the journey we want to sort of try to keep enabling our customers to do that more and more easily.
Thomas, I see a question about what technology is used when running a hybrid solution for a warehouse with poor internet.
Oh yeah, great.
I think so. I can take this up. So usually, like if you have warehouses, or location from where you accessing the Dynamic 365 applications, DC5 is in the cloud SaaS application, so internet is critical. But in scenarios where you have poor internet bandwidth and things like that, there's a solution called ExpressRoute, which basically you can engage with ISP providers, and what it basically does is link your data centers to nearest Azure data centers and provide you dedicated bandwidth. So any calls from your on-prem systems or that locations will basically go through that dedicated pipe, and and that will be faster, and you will not be limited to the bandwidth of the
public internet at that point of time. So I'll share the link there and in the chat. So first route is recommended solutions in those scenarios.
And it looks like we just got one other data question in terms of it's really asking about what percent of code versus SQL view refactoring is required when migrating from AX to D365?
Yeah, I think from the Ali, you want to take that or?
I can take it. I think the main thing there, what we see the customers migrating, it's not about the standard code, because standard code is what Microsoft would have already migrated for you. The challenge is around customizations and the percent of code and will be directly proportional to the amount of customizations you have and how easily those customizations could move to an extension-based model that we have in D365. So that's the thing. We actually have tooling in LCS where you upload your X2012 code, and basically we try to do some automation there to at least, do migration of things that are, straightforward, but then also kind of create the DevOps project and the task for you in terms of looking at areas where you may have to actually manually look at the code and refactor it accordingly. The one thing I do request my customers is that don't just like take all of your X24 customization blindly and bring it into the 365. Because what I have seen with few of my customers is that they bought a lot of those customization over X2012, and then after go live realized that those customization causing problem and actually ended up removing it and using more of the standard functionality. So that is what I would say. But yeah, the couple other areas where we have to look at code, the type of code that's been modified. Like for example, if somebody has modified the core MRP process in X2012, then those will be a little bit harder in terms of migrating to D365 and in terms of aligning with our direction of using planning optimization service, which is microservice that will handle MRP. So those are the considerations usually. If you kind of run into some challenges around, moving your code to the extension model, you may have to request extension points from Microsoft. So that's basically should be done as part of an initial analysis for the code upgrade. SQL views and all of that, I think it's kind of metadata, right? So it will be part of the code refactorization itself in the 365. But hopefully, with if the number of customizations have been sort of less in X2012, it's a much straightforward task. The more customizations you have, then the more analysis is needed as to what needs to move, and then what percent of the code will need refactoring there.
I know that we're coming up to the top of the hour here. JJ, anything else that stands out in the published questions that maybe have been answered in the chat, or anything else that we should be, or customers should be keeping in mind as they move from on-prem to the cloud?
Yeah, I think some of the things Sachin just covered, on-prem to cloud migration, is more about, it's not just about lift and shift. It's also about, in the last 5-6 years, Dynamics 365, we have continuously releasing new features and new functionalities and, improving the overall functional footprint, which were not there in the X2012, right? And adopting new technologies like, the exported data lake and, the cloud microservices architectures using the for running MRP and many other workloads, right? So it's really important to, analyze and understand what you can adopt in D365 rather than have to bring your existing customization, right? So that's the key thing. And
I'm not sure if the question was more about like if somebody is live on D365 on premises, FNO on premises, and wants to migrate to the cloud, then I think that is relatively straightforward. I mean, your code probably remains the same. Whatever code that you are running in on-prem would also run in cloud. So your customization should be transferable. Obviously, like Jila said, we should look at, how can we reduce the number of customizations and stuff like that. Um, but the only problem that we have seen is around if you have a really huge like on-prem database and it kind of crosses the threshold where you can easily upload it to the asset library in LCS and apply it to your cloud environment. That's where I think Harsh can speak to some of the data replication techniques we have to help on that side.
Yeah, if it was a question about the DC5 on-prem to cloud, then as you said, like it's relatively straightforward. It's same code base, same platform and application update. You just need to make sure that your integration and any uses where you have direct access to database and things like that, covered. But I think when it comes to the AX 2012, which is the on-prem version of the Dynamics, then some of these discussions which we have in this question and answer is all applicable to that forum.
Right. Yeah, just to add on-prem, for example, if you have a scenario to move Dynamics 365 on-prem to Dynamics 365 cloud, so code base is same, so you can actually move the code to the cloud. For data, right? So there is a process to bring the data into cloud-hosted environment and then move it to Sandbox. After doing some of the changes to tenants, right, to the users and tenant. If customers have large database, which LCS has a limit of 15 GB of database storage, right? If customers typically have large database size backpack file, that's where it becomes a blocker. So we are actually there are a couple of ways to handle it. So we have one process within LCS where you can actually store your backpack into your Azure storage, and then we have some of the APIs within LCS that you can actually use to move your backpack file from Azure storage to Sandbox database. That is not publicly available, but you can work with us and we can unblock you. If you have large database size customer moving from Dynamics 365 on-prem to Dynamics 365 cloud, we are also doing investment in terms of creating a lighter version of data migration toolkit that will use SQL transaction replication feature, right? So you should be able to connect your Dynamics 365 on-prem database to Dynamics 365 Sandbox environment. And using SQL transaction replication, you should be able to move your database as is from on-prem to the cloud database. So once the replication completes, there will be some scripts to actually change the tenants, and then you should be able to move or use the replicated database in the cloud world, right? So that investment is underway, and will soon release a kind of lighter version of that toolkit that will help large customers to move from on-prem to the cloud.
See, here's another one. Here's another Power BI, or here's a Power BI question in terms of what considerations are there for migrating a BI cube, Power BI, connected to 2012 to D365?
I can take that question. So as far as the BI cubes, in AX 2012, we had the out of the box BI cube, sales cube, and retail cubes and things like that. In Dynamics 365, the embedded Power BI does have addressed some of those cube migrated as a entity
stored. So those data models exist, as well as some Power BI embedded report on top of that. So there is a possibility of evaluating if those out of the box migrated cube are a good fit or not. If you have customized and created a custom cubes in AX 2012 world, our recommendation would be to probably use the export to data lake, and kind of because that basically give you data in the lake, and then you have a lot of choices in the Azure data platform side to build the optimal data models for BI and reporting. And if your requirement is still to bring that data and on-prem, then as we talked, there are techniques to bring the data from on-prem to cloud, cloud to on-prem, so that you can continue using your existing solutions as long as as you need.
Great. Any other questions? I know that we're running against the clock here.
There are a lot of questions on the licensing part, Thomas.
Yeah, so for the licensing piece, right, since we don't have someone from business planning, I'm basically just asking folks to email me directly, right? And that way I can address their specific question rather than going down a rabbit hole without the proper team here. So for Ahmed and others, I've just been giving them my email address. So
okay,
making friends basically.
I think there's one question I think. Go ahead, Sachin.
I see one question from Enrico around, I think C# and link, and maybe connecting to the data using link queries in C#. I don't know exact answer, but what I know is that both X++ and C# basically get compiled into the .NET CLL Common Intermediate Language. So there is more parity between the two, and you should be able to call a method in a .NET DLL, a public method in a .NET DLL from X++ and vice versa. On the link side, I think the link kind of works on the SQL data sets, but in FNO, we actually have the D365 kernel through which we basically sort of, access the data. So it's not directly kind of working on the SQL data set. It has to go through the kernel. But there might be a technique for you to basically get a SQL connection and then use the SQL connection with your link provider to basically sort of use link to retrieve data from the OLTP database. But like I think some Ali or maybe Harsh kind of hinted that if you are basically trying to access data because you need data from external applications, we will strongly suggest you that you actually do it through either a BYOD or exporting the data lake external to D365, because what we want is for you to keep the ERP system sort of sacred in terms of overhead, because what we find sometimes when we have these external applications calling into D365, sometimes they could overload the system, and that could cause challenges on the ERP side. So if possible, kind of keep those isolated and use a data integration technique there rather than have all that code sitting in D365. I don't know, Enrico, if that helped answer your question on that.
Sorry, if I can, Sachin, just add a little bit on that, jumping back. Yeah, so technically C#, of course, .NET libraries and Link are supported in general as a kind of objects in the language. What I want to be very clear about is in scenarios like you are integrating, for example, using in X 2012, the .NET Business Connector or any other mean to directly access SQL Dynamics SQL or the Dynamics application that is not supported anymore. So this becomes an integration scenario, and it must be handled with the integration tools. So refrain to believe that you can use an external application and just, .NET code to access directly Dynamics. That is not the case anymore. That becomes an integration. So tools and, .NET is supported, but for different scenarios and scope, not this kind of scope, just to be very, very clear about that.
And to add to that, Ali, I replied to Enrico with the link that you're referring to on all the integration patterns. And one of the other options is if they can export using BYOD or the data lake to any of those two options, then they are free to consume that data on that end. If they use BYOD to a SQL Azure database or data lake export to a SQL Azure database, then at least the link can connect to that database and get the data. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're about to wrap things up here, so we'll probably have time for one more question. In the meantime, right, as I said at the top, we will be putting a recording of this session, the event, on our community site. So please go to our community site to, refer back to this presentation or any other AX content about migrating to the cloud. And then obviously, if you have specific FastTrack questions, you can reach out to the guys here, and they'll happily take them.
Yeah, our goal is to try to get as many of our exponential customers migrated into D365 so that they can benefit from all the advancements we have made and get to a more secure ERP platform and continue to benefit from the investments that Microsoft is putting in. So happy to help anybody who has any further questions, reach us offline, and our team should be able to point you in the right direction.
And Thomas, I think there was a end of service questions. You want to finally wrap this up with that, or?
I'll look and find that one and just send them my email, right? Because again, like licensing, end of support is a very specific question. I mean, Microsoft does have a number of promotions and offers available to help you with your support, right? A number of AX products are currently out of support, with R3 happening in January of next year. So those horizons are coming up very quickly, but we do have some mechanisms in place to help you extend your support if you're looking to do that in the short term, right? Okay, with that, with 1 minute left, I'm going to thank everybody for their time today, and thank you, FastTrack team at large, for the presentation.